The harsh ring of Thomas's phone cut through the darkness of his bedroom like a knife. His consciousness struggled through layers of sleep as he fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over a glass of water before finding the vibrating device. The screen blazed bright at 2:17 a.m. An unknown number, the empty space beside him in bed, seemed to mock him. Charlotte should have been home hours ago from her weekly book club meeting. She'd left at 7, wearing a new blouse he'd never seen before, a trace of unfamiliar perfume trailing in her wake. "Don't wait up," she called over her shoulder, the front door closing with a final click. "Hello." His voice emerged rough with sleep, his throat tight with unexplained dread. "Is this Thomas Crawford?" The male voice on the other end was professional, controlled, with an undercurrent of tension that made Thomas's pulse quicken. "Speaking." Thomas sat up straighter, sleep falling away like a discarded blanket. "This is Officer Stephen Parker with the Metropolitan Police Department." The officer paused, and Thomas could hear the careful selection of words that followed. "Sir, I'm calling about your wife, Charlotte Crawford. There's been an incident." Thomas's fingers gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of incident? Is she hurt?" "She's been found in a concerning condition at the Pine Grove Motel on Hamilton Street. Emergency services have transported her to Memorial Hospital. You should come right away." The Pine Grove Motel. Thomas's mind raced, trying to make sense of the information. That was across town, nowhere near where her book club supposedly met. What was she doing there? "I understand you have questions, Mr. Crawford, but I can't provide more details over the phone. The emergency room staff will brief you when you arrive." Officer Parker's tone remained carefully neutral, but something in it made Thomas's stomach clench. As he ended the call, Thomas switched on the bedside lamp. Warm light flooded the master bedroom, their bedroom, and his eyes fell on the framed photos dotting the dresser. Their wedding day 8 years ago, Charlotte radiant in white. A vacation in Hawaii 3 years back, both of them laughing on the beach. Recent snapshots showed subtle changes he'd tried to ignore. Charlotte's new highlights, the designer clothes, the way her smile seemed more practiced than genuine. While pulling on jeans and a sweater, fragments of memories from the past year began to surface. Charlotte's phone always face down on tables. The way she'd angle her laptop screen away when he entered her home office. Those urgent work emails that always seemed to arrive during dinner. The yoga studio membership she'd insisted on, despite the one closer to their house having better reviews, that he dismissed each red flag, trusted her completely. What kind of fool was he? The drive to Memorial Hospital seemed both endless and too quick. The streets were nearly empty at this hour, streetlights casting intermittent shadows across his face as he gripped the steering wheel. He barely noticed running a yellow light, his thoughts consumed by that single word. Motel. Thomas pulled into the hospital parking lot, tires crunching over loose gravel as he took the first available space. The emergency room entrance loomed ahead, its fluorescent glare harsh against the pre-dawn darkness. His footsteps echoed in the quiet lot as he rushed toward the sliding doors inside. The reception area assaulted his senses with its sharp antiseptic smell and buzzing fluorescent lights. A nurse looked up from her station, her name tag identifying her as Grace. She had kind eyes and crow's feet that deepened as she noted his distress. "Can I help you?" she asked, fingers already poised over her keyboard. "My wife," Thomas managed, his voice hoarse. "Charlotte Crawford." The police called about her. Recognition flickered across Nurse Grace's features, followed by something that looked uncomfortably like pity. "Yes, Mr. Crawford. Please have a seat. Dr. Wilson will be out to speak with you shortly." "I'd rather stand." Thomas began pacing the waiting room, his shoes squeaking against the freshly waxed floor. The space was nearly empty at this hour, just an elderly man dozing in a corner chair, his chin tucked against his chest, and a young mother cradling a feverish toddler. The minutes crawled by like hours. Thomas checked his phone repeatedly, though he knew it wouldn't show any messages from Charlotte. Her last text had been at 6:45 p.m., heading to book club. "Don't wait up." The casual deception of it made his jaw clench. The double doors leading to the treatment areas swung open, and a tall man in surgical scrubs emerged. His ID badge read, "Dr. James Wilson, Chief of Surgery." "Mr. Crawford?" "Yes, that's me." Thomas stepped forward, studying the doctor's face for clues. "How's Charlotte? What happened to her?" Dr. Wilson gestured toward a more private corner of the waiting room, away from the other patients. His expression was carefully composed, professional, but there was an awkwardness in his manner that set Thomas's nerves on edge. "Your wife is in surgery right now," Dr. Wilson began, keeping his voice low. "We're working to remove a—" He paused, clearly uncomfortable, "a foreign object that's become lodged internally. It's a delicate procedure, but she's stable." "Foreign object?" Thomas's mouth went dry. "What exactly are you talking about?" Dr. Wilson shifted his weight, his discomfort obvious now. "I'm afraid I can't provide more specific details at this time. What's important is that we're addressing the immediate medical concern. Officer Parker would like to speak with you about the circumstances of your wife's admission." As if on cue, a police officer approached them. He was younger than Thomas had expected from their phone conversation, maybe early 30s, with a boyish face that seemed at odds with his serious expression. "Mr. Crawford?" Officer Parker extended his hand. "If I could have a moment of your time?" Thomas shook the offered hand mechanically, noting the officer's firm grip and the way his other hand rested near his weapon, a habitual stance, probably, but it added to the surreal quality of the moment. "There are some details about the situation you need to be aware of," Parker continued, leading Thomas a few steps away from Dr. Wilson. "Your wife was found in room 114 at the Pine Grove Motel. The establishment security cameras recorded another individual leaving the room in a hurry shortly before we received the 911 call." Thomas felt bile rise in his throat. "Another individual?" "A male subject, approximately 6 feet tall, athletic build. The footage isn't clear enough for positive identification, but we're working on enhancing it." Parker paused, choosing his next words carefully. The room showed clear signs of intimate activity. The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright, the antiseptic smell too strong. Thomas leaned against the wall, his legs unsteady. The past year of small doubts and dismissed suspicions crashed over him like a tidal wave. "I want to see her," he said abruptly, pushing away from the wall. "Now!" "Sir, she's in surgery." Dr. Wilson started to protest, but Thomas was already moving toward the operating room doors, his feet carrying him forward as if possessed. "Mr. Crawford, you can't go in there?" Nurse Grace called after him, but he ignored her, bursting through the doors into the surgical wing. The corridor stretched before him, doors labeled or 1, or 2, or 3. Through the small window in the third door, he could see a cluster of medical personnel in surgical gowns and masks. In the center of their attention lay Charlotte, unconscious on the operating table before anyone could stop him. Thomas pushed through the door. The scene that greeted him would be forever branded in his memory. Charlotte's pale face partially hidden behind an oxygen mask, her body draped in blue surgical sheets. And there, in the surgeon's hands, the unmistakable shape of what they were working to remove. A massive dildo, its presence a grotesque confirmation of his worst fears. "Sir, you cannot be in here." A nurse tried to block his view, but it was too late. Dr. Catherine, the assisting surgeon, rushed to usher him out. "Mr. Crawford, please," she insisted, her voice firm but kind behind her surgical mask. "We need to maintain a sterile environment. Your wife's safety depends on it." Thomas allowed himself to be led back to the waiting room, his mind numb with shock and revulsion. He collapsed into a chair, the vinyl squeaking beneath him, and buried his face in his hands. The wedding ring on his finger felt like it was burning his skin through the large windows of the waiting room. He could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the city. The night sky was shifting from black to deep blue, stars fading as morning approached. Thomas sat rigid in his chair, every muscle tense with anger and betrayal that in the growing light, his resolve hardened like steel. He would uncover everything, every lie, every deception, every moment of infidelity. There would be no room for excuses, no possibility of forgiveness. As the sun began to rise, Thomas Crawford made a silent vow. His wife would regret the day she decided to betray him. Morning sunlight crept through the hospital window, casting long shadows across the sterile room. Thomas sat in an uncomfortable vinyl chair, watching Charlotte's unconscious form on the bed. The rhythmic beeping of monitors provided a steady backdrop to his churning thoughts. His wedding ring felt heavy on his finger, a weight that seemed to mock 8 years of trust and devotion. The surgery had ended 2 hours ago. Dr. Wilson had assured him it was successful, though his carefully neutral tone couldn't hide the awkwardness of the situation. Now Thomas waited, his mind replaying every suspicious moment from the past year through the lens of his new knowledge that a slight change in Charlotte's breathing pattern drew his attention. Her eyelids fluttered, fingers twitching against the white hospital sheets. Thomas leaned forward, his expression hardening as he prepared for the confrontation he'd been rehearsing in his mind. Charlotte's eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding their blue depths as she took in her surroundings. The moment she registered Thomas's presence, fear flashed across her features, quickly followed by shame. "Thomas?" Her voice was raw, barely above a whisper. The oxygen monitor on her finger trembled as she reached toward him. What happened? That's what I'd like to know." Thomas's voice could have frozen the summer air coming through the window. "Why don't you tell me about your evening at book club?" Charlotte's fingers clutched at the thin hospital blanket, knuckles white against the pale fabric. "I don't want everything's fuzzy. Let me help clear things up for you." Thomas leaned forward, his gaze drilling into hers. "Room 114. Pine Grove Motel. Ring any bells?" The color drained from Charlotte's face. A tear slid down her cheek as the memories visibly crashed over her. "Thomas, please. Who is he?" The question hung between them like an executioner's blade. The steady beep of the heart monitor increased its pace, betraying Charlotte's rising panic. "His name is Andrew," she finally whispered, each word seeming to physically pain her. Her fingers worried at the edge of the blanket, unable to meet Thomas's gaze. "I met him at Radiance Yoga Studio 6 months ago." 6 months? Thomas's voice was deadly quiet. 6 months of lying to my face. 6 months of betraying everything we built together. It wasn't supposed to happen. Charlotte's words tumbled out in a desperate rush. Her hands fluttered like trapped birds as she tried to explain. "We were just friends at first. He was my instructor, and we'd talk after class. He understood things about me, about what I wanted. Spare me the romantic details of your seduction." Thomas cut her off, disgust evident in every word. "I want his full name. Now." "Andrew Mitchell." Charlotte wiped at her tears with shaking hands, smearing her mascara further. "He teaches the advanced classes." "Thomas, what happened? What you saw?" "He pushed me to try things. When it went wrong, he left me there, alone." "Of course he did." Thomas stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. The sound made Charlotte flinch. "That's what happens when you let someone use you like a cheap toy. That's not fair." Charlotte's voice rose with desperation, cracking on the last word. "I made a mistake, yes, but a mistake." Thomas's laugh was hollow, echoing off the sterile walls. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is missing a deadline. What you did was make a choice. Every time you lied about where you were going, every time you met him, every time you let him touch you, those were choices, Charlotte. Deliberate, conscious choices to destroy our marriage." A nurse appeared in the doorway, drawn by their raised voices. "Is everything all right in here?" "Fine," Thomas snapped, not taking his eyes off Charlotte. "Just having a conversation with my wife about her extracurricular activities." The nurse hesitated, looking between them before reluctantly withdrawing. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway, leaving them alone with the weight of their crumbling marriage. Thomas pulled out his phone, holding it up like evidence in a trial. "Where's your phone, Charlotte?" Her eyes widened, panic replacing the tears. "What?" "Your phone. The one you're always guarding like it contains state secrets. The one you never leave unattended." "Where is it?" I think the police have it." Charlotte's voice was small, defeated. "They took my belongings when the ambulance brought me in." Thomas was already striding toward the door, his purpose clear. In the hallway, he found Officer Parker talking with a nurse at the station. The young officer straightened as Thomas approached, clearly reading the intent in his expression. "I need my wife's phone," Thomas said without preamble. "It's evidence of her affair with Andrew Mitchell." Parker's eyebrows rose at the name. "She identified him?" "Yes." He's an instructor at Radiance Yoga. I want to see every message, every photo, every piece of evidence of their relationship. Mr. Crawford. Parker's tone was professional but cautious. The phone is currently logged as evidence in an ongoing investigation. An investigation into what? A consensual affair gone wrong. Thomas's voice was sharp. Or are you actually going to charge him with abandoning her there? Parker studied him for a long moment before nodding slightly. Follow me? They walked in tense silence to a small office where evidence was being processed. Parker retrieved a clear plastic bag containing Charlotte's belongings. Her purse, clothing, and the phone with its cracked screen. The passcode? Thomas demanded, taking the phone. 0824. Charlotte's weak voice came from the doorway. She stood there in her hospital gown, clutching in four-pole for support. Her face was pale, dark circles under her eyes, making her look ghostly in the fluorescent lighting. It's your birthday. The irony of her using his birthday as her passcode while betraying him made Thomas's jaw clench so hard he could hear his teeth grind. He entered the numbers, and the phone unlocked to reveal a messaging app open to a conversation with Am. What he found made bile rise in his throat. Months of messages, each one a new betrayal. Miss you already. Can't wait until Thursday's book club meeting. Last night was amazing. I love how you make me feel so free. Your husband's really working late again? His loss is my gain. Pictures followed, each one driving the knife deeper. Charlotte in lingerie he'd never seen. Intimate photos clearly meant for Andrew's eyes. Selfies of them together after their encounters, both glowing with post-coital satisfaction, but worst were the messages mocking him, laughing at his trust, joking about how they fooled him. Poor Thomas, so focused on his career, he doesn't even notice his wife sneaking away. He actually believed I was at a work dinner? Some lawyer he is? Thomas's hands shook with rage as he scrolled through month after month of betrayal. Each message was a fresh wound. Each photo another crack in the foundation of their marriage. I'm taking screenshots of everything, he told Officer Parker, his voice tight with controlled fury. I want it all documented for my lawyer. Of course. Parker's tone was carefully neutral. We'll need to keep the phone as evidence, but I'll make sure you get copies of anything relevant to your legal proceedings. Thomas nodded curtly and pulled out his own phone, dialing a number he'd hoped never to need. Jim? It's Thomas Crawford. He turned away from Charlotte's pleading gaze. I need you to draw up divorce papers immediately. I want everything. The infidelity clause, full documentation of her affair, all of it. I have proof of a 6-month relationship, including explicit messages and photos. Charlotte's sob from the doorway would have broken his heart a day ago. Now it only fueled his resolve. Divorce? She stumbled forward, nearly tangling herself in the foreline. Thomas, please, we can work through this. I'll go to counseling. I'll do anything you want. Please don't throw away 8 years of marriage. I didn't throw it away. Thomas's voice was razor-sharp as he turned to face her. You did. With every lie. Every secret meeting. Every time you chose him over me. It wasn't like that. Charlotte reached for his arm, but he jerked away from her touch as if burned. What Andrew and I had, it wasn't real. It was just physical. You're my husband. I love you. Love. Thomas spat the word like poison. Is that what you call it? Letting another man touch you? Laughing with him about deceiving me? Sharing intimate details of our marriage with a stranger? I'm sorry, Charlotte sobbed, her legs trembling beneath her hospital gown. I'm so sorry. Please, Thomas, give me another chance. We can fix this. We can go to marriage counseling, start over. Start over? Thomas's laugh was bitter. And what will we build it on, Charlotte? More lies? More deception? The foundation of our marriage is gone. You destroyed it, piece by piece. Every time you met him in that motel room, it was a mistake, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. The biggest mistake of my life. I'll never see him again, I promise. I'll quit yoga, change my number, anything you want. What I want. Thomas stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. What I want is my wife back. The woman I trusted completely. The woman I would have died for. But she's gone, isn't she? If she ever existed at all. Charlotte swayed on her feet, the color draining from her face. A nurse rushed forward to steady her, shooting Thomas a disapproving look. "She needs to rest," the nurse said firmly. "This conversation can wait." "No, it can't." Thomas straightened his jacket, his expression cold. "Because there is no more conversation to have. All communication goes through my lawyer from now on." He turned to Officer Parker. "I trust you'll get my wife's statement about her encounter with Mr. Mitchell?" Parker nodded, professional mask firmly in place. "We'll be conducting a full investigation into the incident." "Good." Thomas's voice was clipped. "Send any relevant documentation to my lawyer's office. Jim Davidson at Davidson and Associates. He'll be handling everything from here on out." "Thomas, please." Charlotte's voice was barely a whisper now. "Don't leave like this. Don't let it end this way." He paused in the doorway, not turning to look at her. "You ended it, Charlotte. Every time you walked into that motel room. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you let him touch you. This is just making it official." The sound of her collapsed behind him, the nurses rushing to help, the monitors beeping in alarm. None of it made him turn back. The woman he'd loved was already gone, replaced by a stranger who had betrayed him in the worst possible way. There would be no forgiveness, no reconciliation, no second chances. As he stepped into the elevator, Charlotte's broken sobs echoed down the hallway. He let the doors close between them, as final as the death of their marriage. In the polished metal of the elevator walls, his reflection stared back at him. A man forever changed by betrayal, his trust shattered beyond repair. Morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Davidson and Associates, casting long shadows across the mahogany conference table where Thomas sat reviewing the final divorce settlement. The thick stack of papers before him represented the death of his marriage, each page outlining the precise terms of its dissolution. Jim Davidson, his attorney, sat across from him, radiating satisfaction as he adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. The morning light caught the silver in his temples, highlighting the experience etched in the lines around his eyes. He'd earned every one of those lines fighting battles like this. "I have to admit, Thomas," Jim began, his tone carrying a note of professional pride, "this is one of the cleanest victories I've seen in 20 years of divorce law. The infidelity clause in your prenup was ironclad, and the evidence we gathered was overwhelming." Thomas's fingers traced the edge of the settlement papers. "Break it down for me, Jim. I want to hear every detail." "Of course." Jim pulled out a summary sheet, his Mont Blanc pen tapping each point as he explained. "First, the house. It's yours free and clear. Charlotte's name has been removed from the deed. The same goes for both vehicles and all investment accounts." "What about her claim to my law firm shares?" "Denied completely." The judge was particularly unsympathetic given the circumstances. Jim shuffled through more papers. "She keeps only what she brought into the marriage, her personal effects, her pre-marriage savings, and her car. Everything acquired during the marriage goes to you, as per the prenup's infidelity clause." Thomas nodded, his expression remaining carefully neutral. "And the medical bills?" "Her responsibility entirely." The judge actually cited her reckless behavior as justification for not requiring you to contribute. Jim allowed himself a small smile. The hospital incident really worked in our favor. A knock at the door interrupted them. Patricia, Jim's longtime secretary, entered carrying a thick manila envelope. "The final divorce decree just arrived from Judge Henderson's office," she announced, placing it carefully on the table. "And Mr. Crawford, there's a detective here to see you about the Mitchell case." Thomas exchanged glances with Jim, who nodded. "Send him in, Patricia." Detective Marcus Reed entered, his weathered face bearing the tired expression of someone who'd seen too much of humanity's darker side. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm and declined the offered seat with a shake of his head. "Mr. Crawford, Mr. Davidson." He acknowledged them both. "I wanted to deliver this update in person. Andrew Mitchell accepted a plea deal this morning." Thomas's hands flattened against the table. "What are the terms?" 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months, mandatory counseling, and registration as a sex offender. Reed pulled out some paperwork. "The DA pushed hard after we uncovered similar complaints from other students at the yoga studio." "Other complaints?" Thomas's voice carried a dangerous edge. Reed nodded grimly. 3 other women came forward after your wife's case went public, all with similar stories. Mitchell using his position as an instructor to initiate relationships, pushing boundaries, engaging in increasingly risky behavior. In the studio, Jim interjected, shuddered as of yesterday. Their insurance dropped them when the pattern of incidents came to light. Reed's expression hardened. Mitchell won't be teaching yoga to anyone for a very long time. Thomas absorbed this information, his jaw working silently. What about Charlotte's statement? Did she cooperate fully? Reed consulted his notes. Her testimony was crucial to the plea deal. She provided detailed accounts of how Mitchell gradually escalated their encounters, pressured her into more extreme acts, then abandoned her when things went wrong that night. A muscle twitched in Thomas's cheek. Did she mention how willing she was? How she laughed with him about deceiving me? Mr. Crawford, Reed's tone was professional, but sympathetic. I understand your anger. But your wife was also a victim of Mitchell's manipulation. Ex-wife, Thomas cut him off coldly. As of today, she's my ex-wife. Reed nodded in acknowledgement. Of course. Well, that's all I needed to share. The DA's office will send formal documentation for your records. After the detective left, Thomas stared at the divorce decree, its gold seal gleaming in the morning light. 8 years of marriage reduced to legal terminology and property divisions. There's something else you should know, Jim said carefully. Charlotte's lawyer contacted me this morning. She's in serious financial difficulty. Thomas's expression didn't change. Explain. The medical bills alone are over $50,000. Then there's her legal fees, lost wages from the yoga studio closure. Jim spread his hands. She's facing bankruptcy. Not my concern. No, it's not, Jim agreed. But she's desperate. Her lawyer hinted she might try reaching out to you directly. She already has. Thomas pulled out his phone, displaying a screen full of missed calls and unread messages. Letters to my office. Emails. Voicemails. Have you responded to any of them? No. Thomas's voice was firm. And I won't. She made her choices, Jim. Now she can live with the consequences. The intercom buzzed, and Patricia's voice came through. Mr. Davidson, Ms. Crawford is here. She's quite insistent about speaking with Mr. Crawford. Thomas's expression darkened. Tell her the door burst open, and Charlotte rushed in. She looked nothing like the polished yoga instructor she'd been just weeks ago. Her designer clothes had been replaced by worn jeans and a simple sweater. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her carefully maintained highlights had grown out, showing mousy roots. Thomas, please, she began, her voice cracking. I know I have no right to be here, but you're right. You don't. Thomas stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Jim, call security. Wait. Charlotte moved further into the room, her hands clasped in supplication. I've lost everything. The studio fired me. No one will hire me to teach after what happened. I can't even make my rent. And how is any of that my problem? Thomas's voice could have frozen fire. Did you think about consequences when you were sneaking around with Mitchell? When you were laughing with him about deceiving me? I was wrong. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. So terribly wrong. But Thomas, 8 years of marriage has to mean something. It meant something to me. Thomas cut her off. It meant everything to me, until I found out it was all a lie. Not all of it, Charlotte pleaded. What we had was real. I got lost somewhere along the way. Andrew was, don't say his name. Thomas's hand slammed down on the conference table, making Charlotte jump. Don't you dare try to explain or justify what you did. I'm not justifying it. Charlotte's voice rose with desperation. I'm trying to apologize, to make you understand. Understand what? Thomas's laugh was bitter. How you betrayed every vow we made. How you made a fool of me. How you threw away our marriage for cheap thrills with a yoga instructor. It wasn't like that. Charlotte took a step toward him, but Thomas backed away as if her proximity might contaminate him. I was confused, unhappy. Andrew seemed to understand me. Understood you, so he left you bleeding in a motel room. Thomas's voice dripped with contempt. Is that the great understanding you're talking about? Charlotte's face crumpled. He's going to jail because of what happened. Isn't that punishment enough? Do you have to destroy me too? I didn't destroy you, Charlotte. You destroyed yourself. Thomas turned to Jim. "Are we done here?" Jim nodded, gathering the signed papers. "Everything's in order. The divorce is final as of today." "Good." Thomas moved toward the door, pausing only when Charlotte called out one last time. "I still love you," she whispered. Thomas didn't turn around. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't make a mockery of trust. What you feel isn't love, Charlotte. It's desperation, and it means nothing to me. The sound of her broken sob followed him into the hallway, but Thomas didn't look back. He nodded to the security guards who had finally arrived. Leaving them to deal with removing his ex-wife from the building, the elevator ride to the parking garage gave Thomas time to compose himself. In the polished metal walls, he studied his reflection designer's suit, fresh haircut, new watch. The external changes reflected the internal ones. Gone was the trusting fool who'd believed in forever. In his place stood a harder, colder man who would never make the same mistakes again. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Andrew Mitchell's name appeared on the screen. "I'm heading to jail tomorrow. I know you hate me, but please look after Charlotte. What happened wasn't all her fault." Thomas blocked the number without responding. Let them comfort each other with their guilt and regrets. He was done with both of them. The drive home took him past the yoga studio where it had all started. The windows were dark now, a for lease sign hanging prominently in the front. Another casualty of choices and consequences, his new apartment building rose ahead, all glass and steel and modernity. No memories haunted these halls. No ghosts of betrayal lurked in the corners. The doorman nodded as Thomas entered, taking the private elevator to the penthouse level. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Thomas poured himself a scotch and watched the sun setting over the urban landscape. On his finger, the tan line where his wedding ring had been was finally fading. His phone buzzed again, an email from Jim. Final paperwork filed. Charlotte's lawyer says she's moving to Seattle next week. Clean break, fresh start for everyone. Thomas deleted the email without reply. Seattle might as well be another planet. Distance wouldn't change what had happened, wouldn't erase the betrayal that had reshaped him. The city lights began to twinkle on as darkness fell. Thomas raised his glass in a silent toast to lessons learned and bridges burned. The man he'd been had died in that hospital room, watching surgeons extract the physical evidence of his wife's infidelity. The man who emerged was stronger for the pain, wiser for the betrayal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new beginnings. But tonight, Thomas stood alone in his fortress of glass and steel, finally free of the weight of love and trust and all the wounds they brought with them. Let Charlotte and Andrew carry the burden of their guilt. Let them face the consequences of their choices. Thomas Crawford had emerged from the ashes of his marriage transformed, not bitter, but harder. Not broken, but reinvented. The city spread out before him like a field of stars, full of possibilities. For the first time since that late-night phone call had shattered his world, Thomas felt truly, completely free. Aaron Carter's fingers flew across the keyboard, his eyes darting between multiple monitors as he put the finishing touches on his latest project proposal. The office around him hummed with activity, but he remained laser-focused on his work. As project manager, he took pride in his meticulous attention to detail and ability to juggle complex tasks. Glancing at his watch, Aaron realized it was past 7 p.m. He'd lost track of time again. With a sigh, he saved his work and began shutting down his computer. The day had flown by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. Now all he wanted was to get home to Lena and unwind. The drive home was a welcome respite after the intensity of the workday. Aaron felt the tension start to ease from his shoulders as he pulled into the driveway of the modest suburban home he shared with his wife of 8 years. A smile tugged at his lips as he thought of Lena. She was the calm to his storm, the warmth to his logic. Her yoga classes kept her busy, but he looked forward to their quiet evenings together. Entering the house, Aaron called out, "Lena, I'm home." Silence greeted him. He frowned slightly, remembering Lena had mentioned something about a late class. Shrugging off his jacket, he headed to the kitchen to grab a quick snack before jumping in the shower. As he passed the bathroom, something caught his eye. The trash can was overflowing slightly, a white stick poking out from beneath crumpled tissues. Aaron paused, a chill running down his spine as recognition dawned. With trembling fingers, he reached down and pulled out the object. A pregnancy test. Positive. Aaron's mind reeled as he stared at the two pink lines. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Just 3 months ago, he'd undergone a vasectomy. He hadn't told Lena, believing they were on the same page about remaining childless. Now, holding irrefutable evidence to the contrary, his world began to tilt on its axis. He sank to the floor, back pressed against the cool tile as his thoughts raced. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the test was faulty. Or perhaps, no. He pushed the thought away, unwilling to consider the alternative. Lena wouldn't betray him like that. She couldn't. But as Aaron sat there, pieces began falling into place. The late-night yoga workshops that seemed to run longer and longer. The way Lena's phone was always face down these days. Her growing emotional distance. No, he whispered, the words sounding hollow in the empty bathroom. Rising on shaky legs, Aaron moved to the bedroom. He needed to think, to process. But everywhere he looked, he saw signs of the life he and Lena had built together. Photos from their honeymoon. The dresser they'd refinished as a couple's project. Her pillow still holding the indent of her head. Suddenly, the house felt suffocating. Aaron grabbed his keys and headed out, driving aimlessly as night fell. His mind churned with possibilities, each more painful than the last. By the time he returned home hours later, a cold resolve had settled in his chest. He wouldn't confront Lena. Not yet. First, he needed proof. The next morning, Aaron woke early, his sleep fitful and plagued by nightmares. He showered and dressed for work as usual, his movements mechanical. When Lena stirred, he kissed her cheek and muttered something about an early meeting. Instead of heading to the office, Aaron parked a block away from their house. He waited, watching as Lena left for her morning yoga class. Once she was gone, he let himself back inside. The house was quiet, almost mocking in its normalcy. Aaron moved from room to room, searching for what? He wasn't sure. A love letter? Incriminating texts? Part of him hoped to find nothing, to prove his suspicions unfounded. But another part, a colder, more calculating part, was already planning his next move. He was in the kitchen, idly straightening some papers on the counter, when he heard the front door open. Panic surged through him. Lena wasn't due back for hours. Had she forgotten something? Aaron froze, straining to hear. Lena's voice drifted from the entryway, hushed, but clearly agitated. "Mom, I don't know what to do," she was saying. "I can't keep this up much longer." Aaron's breath caught in his throat. He inched closer to the kitchen doorway, careful to remain out of sight. Lena continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Of course, I'll tell him it's his. Nolan isn't ready for a baby. He might leave me if I push him for more. And besides, Aaron's always wanted a baby. It'll be easy to convince him. He's so naive." The world seemed to tilt beneath Aaron's feet. He gripped the doorframe, knuckles turning white as the full weight of Lena's betrayal crashed over him. Nolan. The name burned in his mind. Her fitness trainer. The man she'd sworn was just a friend. Lena's voice faded as she moved further into the house. Aaron stood rooted to the spot, his mind a maelstrom of emotions. Rage, hurt, and a cold, creeping desire for vengeance warred within him. When he finally moved, it was with a calm that surprised even himself. He slipped out of the house undetected, drove to work, and threw himself into his projects with laser focus. To any observer, it was just another day at the office for Aaron Carter. But inside, plans were forming, wheels were turning, and the man who entered that house would never be the same. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within Aaron. He lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, acutely aware of Lena's sleeping form beside him. Her gentle breathing, once a comfort, now filled him with a mixture of revulsion and pain. He waited until she left for her morning class before rising. Then, with methodical precision, he began to pack. Suitcases emerged from the closet, filling quickly with clothes and personal items. Aaron moved through the house like a ghost, gathering the pieces of his life. Family photos were left behind, too painful to contemplate. But his laptop, important documents, and a few cherished mementos made their way into the bags. In the kitchen, he paused. The pregnancy test still sat in the bathroom trash, a silent accusation. With a grimace, Aaron retrieved it, sealing it in a small evidence bag he'd procured for just this purpose. It might prove useful later. Next came the financial coup de grace. Aaron logged into their joint accounts, transferring every cent to a private account he'd set up years ago for emergencies. He changed passwords on all his personal accounts, erasing Lena's access in one fell swoop. As he worked, a cold satisfaction began to replace the hurt. Let her come home to emptiness. Let her feel a fraction of the betrayal he'd endured. With his belongings packed and loaded into the car, Aaron took one last look around the house that had been his home for nearly a decade. Memories assaulted him: lazy Sunday mornings, holiday gatherings, quiet nights curled up on the couch. He pushed them aside, hardening his heart against the onslaught of emotion. There was one final task to complete before he vanished from Lena's life. Aaron booted up his laptop, fingers flying across the keys as he composed an email. The recipient? Hannah Mitchell, Nolan's unsuspecting wife. The message was brief, clinical. Mrs. Mitchell, I believe this belongs to your husband. Sincerely, Aaron Carter. Attached was a photo of the positive pregnancy test. Aaron hit send without hesitation. Let the dominoes fall where they may. With a final sweep of the house to ensure he'd left no trace, Aaron locked the front door and walked away. He didn't look back as he climbed into his car and drove off, leaving behind the shattered remains of his marriage. Hours later, Lena returned home, arms laden with groceries and a spring in her step. Today was the day, she'd decided. She would tell Aaron about the pregnancy, spinning the tale she'd rehearsed countless times. He'd be thrilled, she was sure. And with a baby on the way, she could finally extricate herself from the mess with Nolan. Aaron, she called, pushing open the front door. I picked up some steak for dinner. I thought we could celebrate. Silence greeted her. Lena frowned, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. It wasn't like Aaron to be late without texting. She pulled out her phone, ready to call him, when something caught her eye. The house felt different, empty somehow. Heart pounding, Lena moved from room to room. Aaron's closet, once full, now gaped with emptiness. His dresser drawers hung open, picked clean of contents. In the office, his prized collection of vintage sci-fi novels had vanished from the shelves. No, Lena whispered, panic rising in her throat. No, no, no. She fumbled for her phone, dialing Aaron's number with trembling fingers. It went straight to voicemail. Text messages went undelivered. Emails bounced back, the account apparently deactivated. Lena sank to the floor, her mind reeling. How had he found out? What did he know? And where had he gone? As the reality of her situation sank in, Lena did the only thing she could think of. She called Nolan. Across town, in a tastefully decorated home office, Hannah Mitchell stared at her computer screen in shock. The email from Aaron Carter, a name she didn't recognize, sat open before her. But it was the attachment that had her world spinning off its axis. A positive pregnancy test, and the implication that it belonged to her husband. Hannah's hands shook as she reached for her phone. She and Nolan had been trying for a baby for years, with no success. Now this stranger was telling her that Nolan had not only cheated, but potentially fathered a child with another woman. As she dialed Nolan's number, a cold determination settled over her. One way or another, she would get to the bottom of this. And if what this Aaron said was true, well, Nolan was about to learn just how ruthless Hannah Mitchell could be when crossed. In a small, sparsely furnished apartment across town, Aaron sat on the edge of a rented bed. His laptop glowed in the dim room, open to a series of emails and documents. Bank statements, property records, text logs, all the digital breadcrumbs of Lena and Nolan's betrayal. He'd spent hours compiling evidence, building a case that would leave no doubt about their affair. It wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. No, Aaron's goal had shifted. Now, he wanted to ensure that Lena and Nolan's carefully constructed house of lies came crashing down around them. A notification pinged on his phone. An email from Hannah Mitchell. Aaron allowed himself a small, grim smile as he opened it. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, Lena and Nolan would learn the true cost of their deceit. As night fell over the city, for lives hung in precarious balance. Lena, frantically trying to reach both Aaron and Nolan. Nolan, caught between two women and his own web of lies. Hannah, steeling herself for confrontation. And Aaron, orchestrating it all from the shadows. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, no one would emerge unscathed. Aaron sat in his rented apartment, fingers drumming restlessly on the arm of his chair. The clock on the wall ticked away the seconds, each one bringing him closer to the moment when Lena would return home to find him gone. He imagined her confusion, the panic that would set in as she realized the extent of what had happened. His phone buzzed. A text from Hannah Mitchell. "We need to talk. In person." Aaron's lips curved into a cold smile. He typed back a quick response, suggesting a quiet cafe across town. As he hit send, another notification popped up. Lena. Her name on the screen sent a jolt of anger through him. He declined the call without hesitation. Across town, Lena paced the living room, phone clutched to her ear. "Come on, Aaron," she muttered. "Pick up, damn it." The call went to voicemail again. She let out a frustrated growl, tossing the phone onto the couch. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the empty spaces where Aaron's things had been. How had it all fallen apart so quickly? The phone buzzed. Lena lunged for it, hope flaring in her chest. But it wasn't Aaron. "Nolan," she breathed, answering the call. "Thank God. I need your help. Aaron's gone. He took everything. I think he knows." "Lena, stop." Nolan's voice was cold, clipped. "We can't do this anymore." Lena froze. What? What are you talking about?" "The affair, the baby, all of it. It's over." There was a pause. Then Nolan continued, his tone laced with barely concealed panic. "My wife knows, Lena. Somehow, she found out about the pregnancy test." "That's impossible," Lena whispered. "I was so careful." "Well, clearly not careful enough." Nolan snapped. "Do you have any idea what this could do to me? My reputation, my business, it's all on the line." Lena's knees went weak. She sank onto the couch, mind reeling. "Nolan, please. We can figure this out. The baby is not my problem." Nolan cut her off. "I'm sorry, Lena, but I can't be involved in this. Don't contact me again." The line went dead. Lena stared at the phone in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. In the span of a few hours, her carefully constructed world had crumbled to dust. Meanwhile, Aaron sat across from Hannah Mitchell in a dimly lit cafe. She was an attractive woman, poised and put together, but he could see the strain around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her coffee cup. "I appreciate you meeting with me, Mr. Carter," Hannah said, her voice low and controlled. "I have to admit, your email came as quite a shock." Aaron nodded, his face a mask of sympathy. "I can imagine. And please call me Aaron. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Hannah's eyes flashed with a mixture of pain and anger. "How long have you known? About your wife and my husband?" "Not long," Aaron admitted. "I found out yesterday. The pregnancy test, it was like a punch to the gut." Hannah's knuckles whitened around her cup. "Nolan and we've been trying for a baby for years." I thought. She broke off, composing herself. "Well, it doesn't matter what I thought. What matters now is what we're going to do about it." Aaron leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What do you have in mind?" A cold smile played at the corners of Hannah's lips. "I've been collecting evidence of Nolan's indiscretions for a while now. Financial records, suspicious transactions. I always hoped I'd never have to use them, but now you have no choice," Aaron finished for her. Hannah nodded. "Exactly. And from what you've told me about your wife, it seems we both have a score to settle." As they bent their heads together, plotting their revenge, Aaron felt a surge of vindication. Lena and Nolan had no idea what was coming for them. Back at the house, Lena sat surrounded by scattered papers and open laptops. She'd been trying for hours to access their joint accounts, only to find them drained. Passwords changed, credit cards canceled. It was as if Aaron had erased her from his life with surgical precision. The doorbell rang, startling her. For a moment, hope flared in her chest. Maybe it was Aaron, coming home to talk things through. She rushed to the door, yanking it open. Aaron, The words died on her lips as she found herself face to face not with her husband, but with her mother, Bethany. Bethany Miller swept past her daughter into the house, her critical gaze taking in the chaos. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with disapproval, "I see you've made quite a mess of things." Lena's shoulders slumped. "Mom, please. I don't need a lecture right now." "Oh, I think you do," Bethany retorted, settling herself on the couch. "Sit down, Lena. We need to talk about how you're going to fix this disaster." Reluctantly, Lena sank into the chair opposite her mother. "There's nothing to fix," she said, her voice hollow. "Aaron's gone. He knows about the affair, about the baby. He's left me with nothing." Bethany's eyes narrowed. "Nothing? Don't be dramatic, Lena. You're carrying his child. That has to count for something." Lena's laugh was bitter. "It's not his child, Mom. You know that." "Details." Bethany waved her hand dismissively. "What matters is what you can prove. And right now, you're a pregnant woman whose husband has abandoned her. Use that." Lena stared at her mother in disbelief. "You want me to lie? To trap Aaron with a baby that isn't his?" "I want you to be practical," Bethany snapped. "You've made your bed, Lena. Now it's time to figure out how to lie in it comfortably." She leaned forward, her voice softening slightly. "Think about it. Aaron has a good job, a stable income. He'd make a much better father than that Jim rat you've been fooling around with." Lena felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. "I can't believe you're suggesting this." "Oh, grow up," Bethany rolled her eyes. "This is the real world, Lena. You need to start thinking about your future and the future of that baby. Aaron may be angry now, but men come around, especially when there's a child involved." As her mother continued to outline her plan, Lena felt a growing sense of desperation. Was this really what her life had come to? Lying, manipulating, using an innocent child as a pawn? But as the reality of her situation sank in no money, no job, a baby on the way, Lena found herself nodding along. What choice did she have? Across town, Aaron was putting the finishing touches on his own plan. He'd spent the afternoon with Hannah, comparing notes and strategizing. Now, back in his temporary apartment, he opened his laptop and began to type. First, an email to his company's HR department, explaining that he and Lena were separating due to her infidelity. He requested that she be removed from his insurance and any other benefits immediately. Next, a series of messages to their mutual friends. He didn't go into detail, but the implication was clear. Lena had betrayed him, and he was cutting ties. Finally, he opened a new document and began to outline his case for divorce. Infidelity, financial deception, the works. By the time he was finished, Aaron felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The net was closing in. His phone buzzed again. Another missed call from Lena. Aaron's finger hovered over the block button for a moment before he set the phone aside. Let her stew for a while longer. He'd face her soon enough. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a mockery of the storm brewing in the lives of those caught in Aaron's web of revenge. He dressed carefully, choosing a crisp suit that radiated confidence and control. Today was the day he'd start to dismantle Lena's world piece by piece. His first stop was the law office of Patricia Hendricks, a shark of a divorce attorney recommended by Hannah. As he laid out his case, Patricia's eyebrows rose higher and higher. "Well, Mr. Carter," she said when he'd finished, "I have to say, you've certainly done your homework. With the evidence you've gathered, we should be able to push for a swift and decisive divorce in your favor." Aaron nodded, a cold smile playing at his lips. "That's exactly what I want to hear. How soon can we file?" Patricia's answering grin was predatory. "I can have the papers drawn up by this afternoon. Shall we say 3 p.m.? Perfect." As Aaron left the office, his phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. "It's done. I filed for divorce and alerted the authorities about Nolan's financial irregularities. The storm is about to break." Aaron allowed himself a moment of pure, vindictive pleasure. Everything was falling into place. Meanwhile, Lena's world was crumbling around her. She'd woken to a flurry of messages from friends, all expressing shock and disappointment. It seemed Aaron had been busy. Her phone rang. The gym where she taught yoga classes. With a sinking feeling, Lena answered. Lena, it's Mark. Her boss's voice was strained. We need to talk about your position here. Lena's heart sank. Mark, whatever you've heard, I'm sorry, Lena, but we can't have this kind of drama associated with our studio. We're going to have to let you go. The call ended, leaving Lena staring at her phone in disbelief. In the span of 24 hours, she'd lost her husband, her lover, and now her job. What else could possibly go wrong? A knock at the door answered her question. Lena opened it to find a courier holding out a thick envelope. Lena Carter? At her nod, he handed her the package. You've been served. With trembling hands, Lena opened the envelope. Divorce papers. Aaron was suing her for divorce on grounds of infidelity and financial deception. And he had evidence, lots of it. As she sank to the floor, papers scattered around her, Lena finally allowed herself to break down. Sobs racked her body as the full weight of her choices came crashing down. Across town, Aaron sat in his temporary office, methodically working through his projects. To his colleagues, he appeared focused, professional. No one would guess at the turmoil roiling beneath the surface. His phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Aaron, please. We need to talk. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but please don't do this. I'm pregnant. We can work this out. Aaron's jaw clenched. He typed back a single line. The child isn't mine. We both know that. He hit send, then immediately blocked her number. Enough was enough. As the day wore on, reports started trickling in. Nolan Mitchell had been arrested on suspicion of financial fraud. His gym was being investigated. Clients were canceling memberships left and right. Hannah had moved swiftly and decisively, using her connections in the real estate world to spread the word about Nolan's indiscretions. By nightfall, his reputation would be in tatters. Aaron leaned back in his chair, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over him. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Lena and Nolan's carefully constructed lives were falling apart, piece by piece. But he wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. As night fell, Aaron drove back to the house he'd shared with Lena. It was time for a confrontation. Time to look her in the eye and see the realization of what she'd lost. He pulled into the driveway, steeling himself for what was to come. The lights were on inside, a warm glow that once meant home and comfort. Now, it just filled him with cold determination. Aaron stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. He still had his key, but he rang the doorbell instead. Let Lena come to him. After a moment, the door opened. Lena stood there, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, hair disheveled. She looked like she'd aged years in a day. Aaron, she breathed, relief and fear warring in her voice. You came back. Not for long, he replied, his tone icy. We need to talk. Aaron stepped into the house, his eyes sweeping over the familiar surroundings. Everything looked the same, yet felt entirely different. Lena stood before him, a mixture of hope and fear etched on her face. Aaron, she began, but he cut her off with a raised hand. Save it, Lena. I'm not here for apologies or explanations. His voice was cold, devoid of the warmth it once held for her. I'm here to make things clear. Lena's shoulders slumped. She gestured towards the living room. Can we at least sit down? Aaron nodded curtly, following her into the room. He chose to stand, unwilling to settle into the comfort of their shared space. Lena perched on the edge of the sofa, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I got the divorce papers, she said softly. Good, Aaron replied. Then you know where we stand. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Aaron, please. We can work this out. The baby is not mine, he finished for her, his tone sharp. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. But we could raise it together, Lena pleaded. You've always wanted children. We could be a family. Aaron let out a harsh laugh. A family built on lies? No thanks. He paced the room, anger radiating from every movement. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you could just pass off another man's child as mine, and I'd be none the wiser? Lena flinched at his words. I made a mistake, Aaron. A terrible mistake. But I love you. We can get past this. Love. Aaron spat the word like a curse. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spread your legs for your fitness trainer. Lena gasped, the crudeness of his words a slap in the face. That's not fair. Nolan and it just happened. Things like that don't just happen, Lena. You made a choice, and now you're facing the consequences. He turned to face her fully, his eyes hard. Here's how this is going to go. You're going to sign the divorce papers. You're going to move out of this house. And you're going to leave me alone. But where will I go? Lena's voice was small, frightened. I've lost my job. I have no money. That's not my problem, Aaron said coldly. You should have thought of that before you decided to cheat. Lena stood, desperation clear in her stance. Aaron, please. I'm pregnant. I can't do this alone. For a moment, something flickered in Aaron's eyes, a hint of the man who had once loved her. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by steely resolve. You're not alone, Lena. You have Nolan, remember? Oh, wait, he sneered, I forgot. He dumped you as soon as things got tough, didn't he? Lena's face crumpled. How did you know about that? Aaron's smile was cold. I know everything, Lena. Every lie. Every deceit. And I'm done with all of it. He moved towards the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. You have 1 week to move out. After that, I'm changing the locks. As he stepped outside, Lena's broken sobs followed him. Aaron didn't look back. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and strategic moves. Aaron threw himself into his work, channeling his pain and anger into productivity. His colleagues marveled at his focus, unaware of the turmoil beneath the surface. One sunny afternoon, as Aaron sat in his new apartment reviewing some contracts, his phone buzzed. It was Hannah Mitchell. Aaron, are you free to talk? He set aside his work. Of course, Hannah. What's up? Her voice was tight with suppressed excitement. It's done. The divorce is final. Nolan didn't get a penny. Aaron allowed himself a small smile. Congratulations, Hannah. How do you feel? Relieved, she sighed. And a little lost, to be honest. I've been so focused on taking Nolan down, I'm not sure what to do now. I understand, Aaron said softly. But you're free now. You can start fresh. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What about you, Aaron? How are things with Lena? Aaron's jaw clenched. Moving forward, she's out of the house. The divorce should be finalized soon. And the baby? Hannah asked hesitantly. Not my concern, Aaron said firmly. Lena made her bed. Now she can lie in it. After hanging up, Aaron sat back, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over him. Nolan was ruined, his reputation and finances in tatters. Lena was out of his life, left to face the consequences of her actions alone. He had won, so why didn't he feel victorious? Pushing the thought aside, Aaron returned to his work. He had a life to rebuild. Weeks turned into months. Aaron threw himself into his career, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. His personal life remained barren, but he told himself he preferred it that way. No attachments meant no chance of betrayal. It was a crisp fall morning when Aaron's carefully constructed new life faced its first real test. He was leaving his favorite coffee shop, briefcase in one hand and latte in the other, when a familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. Aaron. He turned slowly, coming face to face with Lena. She looked different, thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hand rested protectively on her swollen belly. For a moment, neither spoke. The busy street faded away, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of shared history and pain. Lena broke the silence first. How are you? Aaron's grip tightened on his coffee cup. Fine, he said curtly. You? Lena's eyes filled with tears. I'm managing. Aaron, I don't. He cut her off. Whatever you're going to say, I don't want to hear it. He made to move past her, but Lena's next words stopped him cold. The baby's a girl, she said softly. I'm naming her Lily, after your grandmother. Aaron felt like he'd been punched in the gut. His grandmother Lily had been the only real family he'd had growing up. Lena knew how much she had meant to him. He turned back, anger flaring. You don't get to do that, he hissed. You don't get to use my family to try and manipulate me. Lena flinched. That's not what I'm doing. I wanted you to know. Know what? Aaron's voice was rising, drawing curious glances from passersby. That you're using my grandmother's name for a child that isn't even mine? A child you conceived while betraying everything we built together. Tears were flowing freely down Lena's cheeks now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. For a moment, Aaron was transported back to happier times. Lazy Sunday mornings, playful banter over breakfast, the warmth of Lena's smile. But the memory was tainted now, poisoned by betrayal. He took a deep breath, forcing his voice to remain steady. Your apologies mean nothing to me, Lena. You made your choice. Now live with it. With that, he turned and walked away, ignoring Lena's broken sobs behind him. His coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions he'd thought long buried. Back at his office, Aaron found it impossible to focus. The encounter with Lena had shaken him more than he cared to admit. He was just considering calling it a day when his phone rang. It was Hannah. Aaron, are you okay? You sound off. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I ran into Lena today. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh, how did that go? About as well as you'd expect, Aaron said wryly. She's very pregnant. Hannah's voice was gentle. And how do you feel about that? Aaron was silent for a long moment. I don't know, he admitted finally. Part of me wants to hate her, to hate that child. But part of you still cares, Hannah finished for him. Yeah, Aaron whispered. I guess I do. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Finally, Hannah spoke again. Aaron, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. Are you? Hannah's laugh was soft, a little sad. I'm getting there. It's not easy, but I'm learning to live for myself again. Not for Nolan. Not for revenge. Just for me. Her words struck a chord in Aaron. When was the last time he'd done something purely for himself? Not out of anger or a desire for retribution. Maybe, he said slowly. Maybe it's time I tried that too. As he hung up the phone, Aaron felt something shift inside him. The anger that had been driving him for so long began to ebb, replaced by a tentative hope. Not for reconciliation with Lena, that bridge was well and truly burned, but for a future where he wasn't defined by her betrayal. The next morning, Aaron woke with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. He dressed with care, choosing a suit that made him feel confident and strong. Today was the day he started truly moving forward. His first stop was his lawyer's office. Patricia Hendricks greeted him with her usual shark-like smile. Mr. Carter, what can I do for you today? Aaron took a deep breath. I want to finalize the divorce as quickly and cleanly as possible. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Are you sure? Given the circumstances, we could push for a more favorable settlement. I'm sure, Aaron said firmly. I don't want anything from Lena. I just want this chapter of my life closed. As he signed the final papers, Aaron felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was done. He was free. Leaving the lawyer's office, Aaron found himself walking towards the park where he and Lena had spent so many happy afternoons. But instead of pain, he felt a sense of peace. This place held good memories, and he was tired of letting Lena's betrayal taint them. He sat on their favorite bench, watching as families played and couples strolled by. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to imagine a future one filled with possibility rather than bitterness. His phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. Dinner tonight? I could use a friend. Aaron smiled, typing back a quick affirmative. As he pocketed his phone, he caught sight of a familiar figure across the park. Lena was there, walking slowly along the path. Her hand rested on her heavily pregnant belly, her face a mask of sadness and resignation. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. Aaron felt a flicker of the old pain, the old anger. But it was muted now, overshadowed by a new emotion, pity. Lena had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences, just as he was living with his. He gave her a small nod, not of forgiveness, but of acknowledgement. Then he stood and walked away, leaving the past behind him. That evening, as Aaron sat across from Hannah at a cozy restaurant, he felt truly relaxed for the first time in ages. They talked and laughed, sharing stories of their new lives and tentative plans for the future. You know, Hannah said, taking a sip of her wine, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm almost grateful to Nolan and Lena. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Oh, she nodded. If they hadn't betrayed us, we'd still be stuck in those unhappy marriages. Now we have a chance at real happiness." Aaron considered her words. She was right, he realized. As painful as the journey had been, it had led him here to a place of strength and self-discovery. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Hannah's smile was warm as she clinked her glass against his. To new beginnings. As they continued their meal, Aaron felt a sense of anticipation building inside him. The future stretched out before him, full of possibilities. He didn't know where the road would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he was excited to find out. The next morning, Aaron woke to a notification on his phone. It was an email from Lena. "Aaron, I know you probably won't read this, and I don't blame you. But I needed to say it one last time. I'm sorry. For everything. I know sorry doesn't fix what I broke, but I hope someday you can find happiness again. You deserve it. Lena." Aaron stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, with a deep breath, he hit delete. He didn't need Lena's apologies or her well wishes. He was building his own happiness now. As he got ready for work, Aaron caught sight of himself in the mirror. The man looking back at him was different from the one who had discovered Lena's betrayal all those months ago. Stronger, wiser, ready to embrace whatever life had in store. With a confident smile, Aaron grabbed his keys and headed out the door. The sun was shining, a new day was beginning, and he was ready to face it head-on. The story of Lena's betrayal and its aftermath would always be a part of him, but it no longer defined him. Aaron Carter was moving forward, one step at a time, into a future bright with promise. And he wasn't looking back. The late September sunset painted long shadows across Cassidy's bedroom floor as she stood before her suitcase, meticulously folding another silk blouse. Her fingers trembled slightly, betraying the calm exterior she fought to maintain. The house around her was quiet, too quiet, save for the distant hum of Adler's computer from his home office down the hall. Tomorrow morning, she would leave for what she'd told her husband was a week-long business conference in Seattle. The lie had fallen from her lips 3 weeks ago during dinner, as smooth as the wine they'd been drinking. Adler had barely looked up from his phone, offering only a distracted nod and mumbled acknowledgement. That moment of inattention had strengthened her resolve, silencing the guilt that occasionally surfaced when she thought about Dalton waiting for her at the airport tomorrow. Cassidy caught her reflection in the full-length mirror beside her dresser. At 35, she still turned heads, something Dalton never failed to mention during their secret lunch meetings and stolen moments in hotel bars. Her dark hair fell in perfectly styled waves past her shoulders, and her fitted blazer accentuated a figure maintained by religious dedication to early morning Pilates classes. Classes that, she realized with a twinge of guilt, Adler had always supported her attending. Even when they cut into their increasingly rare morning time together, her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and her heart skipped a beat. A message from Dalton lit up the screen. "Can't wait for tomorrow. These past months have been torture without you. The resort in Maui is confirmed Ocean View Suite." A smile tugged at her lips as she typed back, "Just one more night. Everything's arranged." She glanced guiltily at the doorway, but the house remained silent. Adler was probably absorbed in another case file, his dedication to his law practice both admirable and, lately, convenient for her extramarital activities the past few days. He'd been more withdrawn than usual, barely speaking during their shared meals. This morning he'd left for work before dawn, something about an important client meeting. But when she called his office around lunch to maintain their usual facade of marital normalcy, his secretary had mentioned he'd taken the day off. The information had unsettled her briefly, but she'd pushed the concern aside, attributing his absence to preparation for an upcoming trial. Cassidy zipped her suitcase closed, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet room. She'd packed carefully new lingerie, hidden beneath business attire, swimsuits concealed by formal wear. Every item chosen to maintain her cover story while serving its true purpose with Dalton. Still packing? Adler's voice from the doorway made her jump. She turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the carpet. In the dimming light, his features were hard to read. "Just finishing up," she replied, striving for casualness. "You startled me." "Did I?" His tone was flat, unlike his usual warm baritone. He stepped into the room, his movements deliberate. Need any help? No, I'm all set. Cassidy busied herself with straightening already straight items on her dresser. How was your day? You left so early this morning. Productive. He moved to stand behind her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the one she'd given him last Christmas. Very productive. Something in his voice made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She met his eyes in the mirror, but his expression remained unreadable. For a moment, they stood frozen in this tableau, husband and wife separated by mere inches and countless lies. I need to run to the pharmacy, she said finally, breaking the tension. Last-minute travel necessities. Of course you do. He stepped back, giving her space to move past him. Don't be long. The drive to the pharmacy was quick, the streets of their suburban neighborhood bathed in the golden light of evening. Cassidy's hands were tight on the steering wheel as she pulled into the nearly empty parking lot. Inside, she wandered the aisles aimlessly, picking up travel-sized toiletries she didn't need. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Dalton. Thinking about you. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. She smiled at the screen, imagining his face, his touch, the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. It was so different from the way Adler looked through her lately, as if she were just another piece of furniture in their perfectly decorated house. The teenage cashier barely glanced at her as she checked out, too absorbed in her own phone to notice Cassidy's distraction. Outside, the sky had darkened to deep purple, streetlights flickering to life one by one. When she pulled back in her driveway, 20 minutes later, something felt off. The house looked different somehow. The warm yellow light that usually spilled from Adler's office window was gone. Her heart rate picked up as she noticed his car still in the driveway, gleaming black in the gathering darkness. The Cassidy's heels clicked against the pavement as she approached the front door, each step echoing in the unusual stillness of the evening. The sound seemed to mock her, a countdown to something she couldn't quite grasp. The door swung open silently beneath her touch. The foyer was dark. The familiar shapes of their carefully chosen furniture transformed into looming shadows. Adler? The living room light flicked on. Her husband sat in his leather armchair, his 6'2" frame coiled with tension. Beside him, her carefully packed suitcases lay open, their contents scattered across the floor like evidence at a crime scene. Her heart stopped. Sit down, Cassidy. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous in its calmness. It was his courtroom voice, the one he used when cross-examining witnesses he knew were lying. What are you doing? Her voice came out higher than intended, panic creeping in at the edges. Why are my things? Sit down. Each word was carved from ice. She sank into the couch across from him, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. The pharmacy bag slipped from her fingers, rolling forgotten across the hardwood floor. Adler's dark eyes never left her face, studying her with the same intensity he reserved for particularly difficult cases. How long? He asked simply. I don't. He held up a hand, the wedding band on his finger catching the light mockingly. 6 months of deleted texts, hotel receipts, restaurant charges. You got sloppy, Cassidy. His laugh was hollow, devoid of any warmth. Or maybe you wanted to get caught. Did you think I wouldn't notice the second phone in your gym bag? The mysterious lunch meetings that ran late? The credit card charges from hotels when you were supposedly working late? The room spun around her. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Adler stood, his height suddenly imposing as he towered over her. Get in the car. What? We're going for a drive. Adler, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. He moved toward the door, car keys jingling in his hand. Get in the car or I call your mother and tell her everything right now. The mention of her mother sent ice through Cassidy's veins. Reeves was old school, traditional to her core. The shame of a cheating daughter would destroy her. Cassidy stood on shaky legs and followed Adler to his car, her designer heels suddenly unstable beneath her. The drive was silent, street lights casting alternating patterns of light and shadow across their faces. Cassidy's mind raced, trying to piece together where it had all gone wrong. She'd been so careful, or so she'd thought. Each deleted text, each carefully planned meeting with Dalton, each lie about working late, she'd orchestrated it all like a symphony. But somehow, Adler had known when they turned onto the familiar tree-lined street of her childhood home. Cassidy's stomach dropped. "Why are we here?" Adler didn't answer. He pulled into the circular driveway of the sprawling Victorian house where she'd grown up. Despite the late hour, lights glowed warmly in the windows. Her mother was awake. Reeves opened the door before they reached it, her silver hair pulled back in its usual elegant knot. Her expression was unreadable as she took in the sight of her daughter and son-in-law standing on her doorstep at 9 in the evening. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," Reeves said softly. Her eyes lingering on Cassidy's face, Adler reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small wooden box, its surface worn smooth with age. Cassidy had never seen it before, but something about it made her skin crawl. He handed it to Reeves. Without a word, her mother's fingers closed around the box, knuckles white with tension. "It's time she understood," Reeves said, her voice heavy with something that sounded like regret. Before Cassidy could process what was happening, Adler turned and walked back to his car. His footsteps were measured, deliberate, the same way he walked in court when he'd just delivered a devastating piece of evidence. She watched, frozen, as he slid into the driver's seat without a backward glance. "Adler, wait!" The words burst from her before she could stop them. But the engine was already roaring to life, and within moments, his tail lights disappeared around the corner, leaving her alone with her mother and the mysterious box that seemed to pulse with unspoken secrets. "Come inside, Cassidy." Reeves's voice cut through the evening air like a steel blade. It was the same tone she'd used when Cassidy was young, the one that brooked no argument. The porch light cast harsh shadows across her mother's face, deepening the lines around her mouth and eyes. Had those lines always been there? Or had they been carved by secrets like the one clutched in her hands? Cassidy followed her mother into the house, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors she'd once slid across in sock feet as a child. The foyer still smelled of lemon furniture polish and the faintest hint of roses, her mother's signature scent. Family portraits lined the walls, chronologically arranged from her childhood through her wedding day. She couldn't bring herself to look at them now. The antique grandfather clock in the corner ticked away the seconds, each sound like a hammer falling on her racing heart. It was the same clock that had counted down the minutes until curfew in her teenage years, that had chimed through family dinners and holiday gatherings. Now its steady rhythm felt like an executioner's drumbeat. Reeves led her to the formal living room, where crystal decanters caught the light from the old brass lamps, throwing prismatic patterns across the Victorian wallpaper. Nothing in this room had changed since Cassidy's childhood. The same heavy drapes framed the windows, the same Persian rug covered the floor, the same family photos crowded the mantelpiece. Time stood still here, preserving memories like insects in amber. "Sit," Reeves commanded, gesturing to the velvet settee where Cassidy had once posed for piano recital photos, where she'd later sat to tell her parents she was engaged to Adler. The wooden box sat between them like a bomb waiting to detonate. Cassidy sank into the settee, her designer dress feeling suddenly garish against the aged velvet. Her mother stood by the fireplace, one hand resting on the mantel where generations of family photos stood sentinel. The flames cast dancing shadows across her face, making her expression even harder to read. "How did he know?" Cassidy whispered, more to herself than to her mother. "I was so careful." Reeves's laugh was bitter, startling in its harshness. "Your husband is a brilliant man, Cassidy. Did you really think you could fool him forever? Did you think he wouldn't notice the changes in you? The way you stopped looking him in the eye? The mysterious phone calls? The sudden business trips? We grew apart," Cassidy defended weakly, her voice small in the large room. "He was always working, always distant." "Enough!" Reeves's voice cracked like a whip. "You're not the first woman in this family to use that excuse, and I pray you'll be the last." She picked up the wooden box and held it out to Cassidy. In the firelight, the wood seemed to shimmer with its own inner glow. The brass hinges were tarnished with age, and something had been carved into the lid, a pattern too worn to make out. "Open it," Reeves commanded. "It's time you learned about the legacy you've chosen to continue." Cassidy's hands trembled as she reached for the box. Before her fingers could touch it, her phone buzzed in her purse, probably another message from Dalton, wondering why she hadn't responded to his latest text. The sound seemed to break some sort of spell in the room. "Turn it off," Reeves said sharply. "Whatever's on that phone can wait." She thrust the box toward Cassidy, cannot. With shaking fingers, Cassidy pulled out her phone. 3 missed messages from Dalton lit up the screen. "Everything okay? You went quiet. Call the airline. Our seats are confirmed. Can't wait to hold you tomorrow." The words, once thrilling, now turned her stomach. She powered off the phone and dropped it back in her purse. "Do you love him?" Reeves asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence. Cassidy looked up, startled. "What?" "This man you're willing to destroy your marriage for. Do you love him?" Cassidy faltered. Did she love Dalton? She loved the way he made her feel desired, appreciated, alive. She loved their stolen moments and secret plans. But love? It's complicated. "No," Reeves said firmly. "It's really not. Either you love him enough to throw away everything you've built with Adler, or you don't. There's no middle ground in betrayal." The word betrayal hung in the air between them, heavy and accusatory. Cassidy flinched. "Your father would be ashamed," Reeves continued, each word precise and cutting. "Thank God he didn't live to see this." "Don't," Cassidy whispered. "Please don't bring Dad into this." "Why not? He's as much a part of this story as anyone." Reeves's fingers tightened around the box. "More than you know." She thrust the box into Cassidy's hands. "Open it. See what you're really a part of." The box was heavier than it looked, warm from her mother's grip. As Cassidy's fingers found the catch, a sudden chill ran through her. Whatever was inside this box had brought her husband here tonight, had put that look of grim satisfaction on his face as he drove away. Whatever secrets it held had been waiting for this moment. Like a spider in its web, the brass catch resisted for a moment, then gave way with a soft click that seemed to echo in the quiet room. As Cassidy lifted the lid, the hinges creaked, a sound like a distant scream. The brass hinges creaked ominously as Cassidy lifted the lid of the wooden box, the sound piercing the heavy silence of her mother's formal living room. Inside, folded with precise care that spoke of frequent handling, lay a vintage dress in deep burgundy silk. Even in the dim light, the fabric held a sheen that hinted at its former glory. The material whispered against her fingers as she lifted it, releasing a musty scent of age and secrets. "August 15th, 1985, Reeves said, her voice carrying the weight of buried memories. "I remember the exact date I first wore that dress." Some dates burn themselves into your memory, Cassidy. They become the markers between before and after. "It's beautiful," Cassidy murmured, running her fingers along the intricate seams. "But I don't understand what this has to do with." "Keep looking," Reeves interrupted, moving to stand by the fireplace. The flames cast dancing shadows across her face, highlighting the lines that years of carrying secrets had etched around her mouth. "There's more." Beneath the dress lay a stack of photographs, their edges worn yellow with time. Cassidy's hands trembled as she lifted the first one. The image showed her mother, decades younger, wearing the same burgundy dress at what appeared to be a charity gala. She was laughing, head thrown back in genuine joy, while a man who definitely wasn't Cassidy's father held her close. He was handsome in a classic way, tall, dark-haired, with an intimate smile that seemed meant only for Reeves. "Who is he?" Cassidy's voice cracked on the question. "His name was James. James Whitaker." Reeves moved closer, her fingers tracing the edge of the photograph. "He was brilliant, charming, ambitious, and very married. Just like your Dalton." Cassidy's head snapped up so fast her neck cracked. "How did you know about Dalton?" Reeves's laugh held no humor. "Adler did his research thoroughly. Every hotel meeting, every secret phone call, every planned trip to Maui. He came to me 3 weeks ago, asking questions about our family history. That's when I knew it was happening again." "What was happening again?" "The curse," Reeves said softly. "The pattern we can't seem to break." Instead of explaining further, she pointed to the next photograph in the stack. This one showed her mother in the same dress, visibly pregnant, gazing up at James with undisguised adoration. The timestamp in the corner read December 1985. That understanding dawned slowly, like ice spreading across a pond. No, Cassidy whispered, her fingers going numb. You can't mean your father, the man who raised you, who loved you unconditionally, who taught you to ride a bike and checked under your bed for monsters. He wasn't your biological father. Reeves's voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she reached for the crystal decanter on the sideboard. James was. The room tilted dangerously. Cassidy gripped the edge of the settee, her knuckles white against the aged velvet. You're lying. Am I? Reeves poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass. Look in the mirror, Cassidy. Really look? You have his eyes, his smile. I see him every time I look at you. So did Howard. Howard, Cassidy repeated numbly. The name felt foreign on her tongue. She'd never called him anything but Dad. He knew? Of course he knew. Reeves took a long sip of her drink. Just like Adler knows everything about you and Dalton. Men like them. They see everything. They just wait for the right moment to show their hand. How? When did he find out? Reeves settled into her high-back chair, the firelight catching the silver in her hair. It was a Tuesday evening, much like this one. Howard came home early from work, something he never did. I should have known then that something was wrong. He walked into our bedroom while I was getting ready for what I'd told him was a charity committee meeting. She gestured to the burgundy dress. I was wearing that. He stood in the doorway, just watching me apply my lipstick. Then he said, very quietly, "Who is James, Catherine?" "What did you do?" Cassidy whispered. "What you going to try to do?" I lied. "Badly." Said he was just a colleague. "Howard, let me finish the lie. Let me dig myself deeper with every word." Then he opened his briefcase and laid out everything. Photos from the private investigator. Hotel receipts. Phone records. Reeves's hand tightened around her glass. He'd known for weeks. Been gathering evidence, building his case like the lawyer he was. Sound familiar? You never told me, Cassidy said, her voice hollow. All those family dinners, holiday gatherings. My wedding day, it was all built on lies. The love wasn't a lie, Reeves snapped, ice cubes clinking sharply in her glass. That's what makes this all so much worse. Howard loved you with every fiber of his being. You were his greatest joy and his deepest wound, all wrapped into one precious package. She set her glass down with deliberate care. Do you remember your 16th birthday? How Howard spent months restoring that vintage Mustang for you. Of course I remember. He worked every weekend. Because the garage was the only place he could cry without anyone seeing. Reeves cut in. I found him there one night, just sitting in that half-finished car. He looked at me and said, "She has James's hands on the steering wheel, but by God, she'll learn to drive from me." The memory hit Cassidy like a physical blow. Hours spent in parking lots with her father, learning to handle the manual transmission. His patient voice guiding her, his proud smile when she finally got it right. All while knowing. Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Dalton's name lit up the screen. "Answer it," Reeves commanded. "Put it on speaker." "Mom, I don't." "Answer it." With trembling fingers, Cassidy hit the speaker button. Dalton's voice filled the room, tight with controlled panic. "Where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Everything's set for tomorrow, flights, hotel, the whole package. But you've gone dark. What's going on?" Reeves's eyes narrowed at the sound of his voice. Before Cassidy could respond, her mother leaned forward. "Tell him you're pregnant." "What?" Cassidy hissed. "I'm not. Tell him," Reeves insisted, her voice hard. "See what kind of man you're destroying your life for." Cassidy stared at her mother, then back at the phone. "Dalton," she said carefully, her heart hammering. "Something's happened. I think I'm pregnant." The silence that followed stretched for 3 excruciating heartbeats. "Are you sure?" His voice had changed completely, turned cold and calculating. I think so. I mean, I haven't confirmed it yet, but we'll take care of it." The words fell like ice. "You know I can't. My position at the firm, my family, we talked about this, Cassidy. No complications. But I thought, don't think. Just handle it. And do it quietly." His voice dropped lower. "My wife's already suspicious. I can't afford any scandals right now." The line went dead that Reeves's laugh was without humor. "James said almost the exact same thing to me. Take care of it, Catherine. I can't afford complications right now. She reached for another photo from the scatter pile. Would you like to see what happened next? The image showed James with another woman, both smiling at a restaurant Cassidy recognized as Le Cirque. The date stamp read 1986, a year after the photo of him with her pregnant mother. He had a type, Reeves said flatly. Married women from good families. Low risk, high reward. Just like your Dalton has a type. Did you really think you were special? That you were the first? She pulled out another photo. James with a different woman. Then another. And another. I hired my own investigator after Howard confronted me. Reeves explained. Found out I was just the latest in a long line. James had been doing this for years. Finding unhappy wives, making them feel special, then moving on when things got messy. Her eyes locked onto Cassidy's. Sound familiar? Cassidy's phone buzzed again, this time with an email notification. Her hand shook as she opened it. From Adler Kingston, subject. Your choices, your consequences, open it, Reeves commanded. Read it aloud. Cassidy's voice trembled as she read. By the time you read this, I will have transferred all joint accounts to my name only, removed you from all insurance policies, canceled your country club membership, informed the charity board of your resignation, contacted our friends and family about our impending divorce. Your belongings will be packed and moved to storage by morning. The address will be sent to your mother's house. That don't attempt to contact me. Don't try to explain. Every word you've spoken for the past 6 months has been a lie. Nothing you say now will change that you chose your path. Now walk it alone. Adler. He's been planning this, Cassidy whispered. All this time, of course he has. Just like Howard planned every detail of my downfall. Reeves stood, moving to a small writing desk in the corner. She pulled out a yellowed envelope. Would you like to see the letter your father left me? Reeves unfolded the letter with practiced care, as if she'd read it countless times before. The paper was thin with age, the creases well worn. Howard wrote this the night he discovered everything, she said, smoothing the paper with trembling fingers. I found it on my vanity table, right next to this cursed dress. Listen carefully, Cassidy. This is your future speaking. She began to read. Catherine, by the time you read this, I will have dismantled every aspect of the life we built together. The only thing I cannot erase is our child, the innocent result of your betrayal. I will remain in this marriage for appearance's sake. I will raise this child as my own. But make no mistake, we are finished. The woman I loved died the moment I saw those photos that don't bother trying to explain. Every explanation is just another lie. Howard, Cassidy's phone erupted with notifications before she could respond. Text messages flooded in, each one a new blow from Marin. There's a moving truck outside your house. Cassidy, what's happening? From her sister Autumn. How could you do this to Adler? Don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore. From her boss. Need to see you first thing tomorrow. Urgent matter regarding your position. He's erasing me, Cassidy whispered, watching the messages pile up. Everything we built. No, Reeves corrected sharply. He's executing justice. There's a difference. She moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. Howard did the same thing. Within 24 hours, he had frozen all our accounts, canceled my credit cards, informed our entire social circle, removed me from every club membership, charity board, and social committee, called my family to tell them exactly what I'd done. She turned back to Cassidy. The difference is Howard stayed for you. Adler has no such obligation. He's free to cut you out completely. Cassidy's phone rang again. Dalton. Her finger hovered over the ignore button. Answer it, Reeves commanded. Let's hear what your future has to say now. Cassidy put the phone on speaker just as another email notification appeared, this one from Dalton's wife, Eleanor. The subject line read, Found these interesting. Dalton, Cassidy answered, her voice shaking. You vindictive bitch, he snarled, all pretense of affection gone. Did you send those photos to Eleanor yourself? Trying to force my hand? What? No. She is everything. Every text, every photo, every hotel receipt. My partners have been called for an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't send. My children, Cassidy. My teenage children are going to see these photos. Their friends' parents are on the charity board with Eleanor. Do you understand what this means? Reeves picked up another photo from the floor, this one showing James at a school function, deliberately turning away from her mother. Your reputation is gone, Dalton continued, his voice cold. And you try to drag me down with you. Well, congratulations. You've ruined everything. Dalton, please, don't contact me again. Ever. I've already told Eleanor it was all you. You pursued me. You manipulated the situation. She'll believe me. I've got 12 years of marriage and 3 kids. What do you have? A moving truck in your driveway? The line went dead. Familiar. Reeves mused, swirling the ice in her glass. James said almost the same things. You're hysterical, Catherine. Nobody will believe you over me. I've got a wife, a career, a reputation. She smiled bitterly. He was right. Nobody did believe me. Another email notification lit up Cassidy's phone. From her firm's HR department. Dear Ms. Kingston, due to recent events and the dissolution of our partnership with Kingston Law, your position at Maxwell and Partners has been terminated, effective immediately. Please do not report to the office. Your personal items will be shipped to the address on file. That we wish you the best in your future endeavors. How did he move so fast? Cassidy whispered, staring at the screen. He's been moving pieces in a place for weeks, Reeves replied. Just like Howard did. Men like them. They don't act on impulse. They plan. They prepare. They execute. She picked up the burgundy dress, holding it up to the firelight. You know what the worst part is? The part that will haunt you for years to come. Cassidy looked up, tears blurring her vision. You'll never know if it was worth it. Every memory with Dalton will be tainted by what you lost. Every moment of passion will be overshadowed by the destruction it caused. You'll lie awake at night, replaying every decision, every choice that led you here, and you'll never be sure if those stolen moments of happiness were worth the lifetime of regret that followed. Another text lit up Cassidy's phone from the head of their country club's social committee. Emergency meeting called. Your membership has been revoked. Eleanor Prescott will be taking over your position as event chair. They're choosing sides already, Cassidy whispered, watching the notifications multiply. How did everyone find out so quickly? Adler didn't just plan the logistics, Reeves explained, settling back into her chair. He planned the narrative. Right now, across town, every influential person in your social circle is getting a carefully crafted message. Not from him directly, of course. He's too smart for that. She reached for another photograph, this one showing a young Howard at a social function, deliberately turning his back on Reeves. By tomorrow morning, you'll be the cautionary tale at every coffee meeting, every tennis match, every lunch reservation. The whispers will follow you everywhere. Cassidy's phone buzzed again. A message from their neighbor, Indigo. Moving trucks just left. The house is empty. Call me if you need anything. Though I understand if Adler doesn't want you to have contact with us anymore. The house. Cassidy stood abruptly. He can't just check the deed. Reeves cut in. Whose name is on it? Cassidy sank back down as realization hit. The house had been Adler's before their marriage. She'd never insisted on adding her name to the deed, trusting in there forever. Your car? Reeves continued mercilessly. The lease is probably through his firm. Your health insurance? His family's policy. Your social standing? His connections. You spent 6 months building a fantasy with Dalton while Adler spent those same months systematically preparing to dismantle every aspect of your life. As if on cue, Cassidy's phone lit up with an email from their family doctor. Due to the termination of your insurance coverage, we'll need to cancel your upcoming appointments. It's not just material things, Reeves warned, reaching for the stack of photos again. Watch what happens to your friendships. Women you thought were close confidants will vanish. They'll side with Adler partly because he's the wrong party, but mostly because their husbands do business with him. She spread out several photos, creating a timeline of isolation. This was my life after Howard exposed the affair. Photo by photo, you can see my world shrinking. This Christmas party? Last one I was invited to. This charity luncheon? They asked me to resign my position. This school function? The other mothers wouldn't let their children play with you. But you stayed married, Cassidy protested weakly. Dad stayed. Howard stayed because of you, Reeves corrected sharply. And believe me, there were days that was worse than divorce. living with a man who could barely look at you, who flinched at your touch, who spoke to you only when absolutely necessary. Do you know what it's like to live for 20 years with someone who hates you? Before Cassidy could respond, her phone chimed with a calendar notification. Reminder, Kingston family Sunday dinner, canceled permanently. Your sister will side with him, Reeves predicted, watching Cassidy's face crumple. Autumn always idolized Adler. She'll see this as you destroying not just your marriage, but her relationship with the brother she never had. The truth of this hit home as another text appeared from Autumn. How could you? After everything Adler's done for this family? Don't call me. Don't text. I can't even look at you right now. Cassidy's hands shook as she scrolled through her phone. Friends were unfollowing her on social media. Group chats were going silent. Email after email arrived, each one severing another connection to her carefully constructed life. The worst part, Reeves said softly, is that tomorrow, Dalton will walk into his office like nothing happened. His wife will accept his explanation that you were obsessed with him, that you pursued him, that he was the victim of your manipulation. He'll keep his job, his family, his reputation. He might face some awkward moments, some raised eyebrows, but he'll survive. She pointed to a final photo James at another woman's wedding, just 2 years after Cassidy's birth. Men like them always do. Cassidy's phone lit up with one final message. From Adler's mother. I've always thought of you as a daughter. That's what makes this betrayal so painful. Please don't contact us again. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. What do I do now? Cassidy asked, her voice small in the crushing silence. Reeves stood, gathering the scattered photos. She picked up the burgundy dress, its silk still shimmering in the firelight despite the years of hidden shame it carried. You do what I did, she said finally. You survive. You wake up every morning and face a world that sees you differently. You learn to live with the whispers, the turned backs, the lost friendships. You build a new life from the ashes of the one you burned down. She held out the dress. And you keep this, not as a reminder of what you lost, but as a warning of what betrayal costs. Maybe someday, you'll sit across from your own daughter and explain why trust, once broken, can never truly be repaired. The grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the house like a funeral bell. Cassidy stared at the burgundy dress, understanding at last that she hadn't just lost her marriage. She'd inherited a legacy of destruction, a pattern of pain that would follow her long after the dust of her shattered life settled. Eye in her hand, her phone lit up one last time. An email from Adler's personal account. Cassidy, by now you understand the full scope of what's happening. Every decision has consequences. Every betrayal has a price. That I love the woman I thought you were. But that woman was a lie. The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow morning. Don't fight them. Don't try to explain. Don't ask our friends to intercede. It's over. You chose your path the first time you met him for lunch. Now walk it alone. Adler. The email blurred as tears finally fell. Around her lay the wreckage of her life, scattered photos of her mother's past mistakes mirroring her own, the burgundy dress that had witnessed 2 generations of betrayal, and the impossible weight of a future irreversibly altered by her choices. Welcome, Reeves said softly, to the other side of betrayal. 2 weeks crawled by like years. Cassidy sat in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by the mocking remnants of her former innocence. Cheerleading trophies gathered dust on shelves, their golden figures frozen mid-leap. Prom photos smiled from corkboards, teenage Cassidy radiant in her first formal dress. Her college graduation photo hung askew, she and Adler beaming at the camera, his arm protective around her waist. Each memory now felt like a scene from someone else's life. The thick manila envelope that arrived that morning lay unopened on her old desk, its crisp edges and formal typing announcing its purpose: divorce papers. Beside it sat a smaller envelope containing a single key and an address, the location of a storage unit across town, where the remains of her married life now sat in neat, labeled boxes. Her mother's house had become both sanctuary and prison. The same walls that had witnessed her childhood dreams now held her adult nightmares. Each creak of the floorboards, each tick of the grandfather clock, reminded her of all she'd lost, and a news alert buzzed on her new phone. She'd been forced to change numbers after Adler cut off her old one. The headline made her blood run cold. Breaking. Senior partner at Prescott and Associates resigns amid scandal. Below was Dalton's face, wearing that practiced smile she'd once thought was reserved for her. The photo showed him with his wife Eleanor, their 3 children arranged in a perfect family tableau. His hand rested possessively on Eleanor's shoulder, wedding ring clearly visible, the same hand that had traced patterns on Cassidy's skin in countless hotel rooms. Despite his meteoric rise at the prestigious firm, the article read, sources close to Mr. Prescott suggest a pattern of inappropriate relationships with married women in the community. This isn't the first time such allegations have surfaced. I see you found out. Reeves's voice came from the doorway. She held 2 steaming cups of coffee, offering one to Cassidy. I did some digging after Eleanor's initial call. Want to know what I discovered about your perfect lover? Cassidy's hands trembled as she took the cup. What do you mean? Reeves settled into the window seat, morning light catching the silver in her hair. She pulled out a folder the kind Howard had once used for his case files. 3 previous incidents, all carefully buried. Money and influence can hide almost anything. She extracted several newspaper clippings, laying them out like tarot cards, predicting a future that had already come true. Sarah Mitchell, 2019. Wife of Dr. Thomas Mitchell, Chief of Surgery at Metropolitan General. Marriage ended after affair with unnamed law partner. Another clipping, Rebecca Collins, 2021. Social chair of Westbrook Country Club. Divorced following indiscretions with married attorney. There were others, Reeves continued, her voice clinical. Less documented, but the pattern is clear. All married women from prominent families. All with something significant to lose. Stop, Cassidy whispered. But her mother pressed on. Let me guess, he took you to Le Meridien? Always the corner suite on the 12th floor? Room service champagne, specifically Veuve Clicquot. Cassidy's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. How did you? Because that's where he took Sarah. And Rebecca. Probably others we don't know about. Reeves extracted another paper, an email printout. This arrived an hour ago from Eleanor. You should read it yourself. The paper crinkled as Cassidy took it. Dear Catherine, I thought you should know the full scope of what your daughter destroyed herself for. Dalton broke down last night after the board meeting. Confessed everything, not just about Cassidy, but about all of them. The firm is bundling him off to a discreet rehabilitation facility, where he'll supposedly be treated for sex addiction. A convenient diagnosis that lets everyone save face that he was quite candid about Cassidy specifically. Said she was the easiest to seduce, so desperate for attention that she overlooked all the obvious red flags. Said she knew there might be others, but convinced herself she was different, special. Said she practically threw herself at him after that first lunch meeting. That I almost pity her. Almost, the firm will release a statement about his personal health issues requiring a leave of absence. He'll emerge in 6 months, tanned and repentant, with a story about finding God or mindfulness or whatever's trendy then. He'll probably write a book about overcoming addiction, do the talk show circuit, reinvent himself as a motivational speaker. Meanwhile, your daughter, well, I'm sure you know how this story ends. You've lived it yourself, haven't you? Eleanor, rehab, Cassidy said, the paper crumpling in her fist. He gets to hide in some luxury facility while you sit here, watching your life burn to the ground? Reeves finished, setting down her coffee cup with a sharp click. Of course he does. Men like Dalton always find soft places to land. Rehab, therapy, spiritual awakening, whatever shelter lets them wait out the storm. She pulled out her iPad, opening a browser. Look at this. 3 hours ago, Prescott and Associates released their official statement. The firm's sleek website displayed a carefully worded message. Our colleague Dalton Prescott has taken a leave of absence to address personal health concerns. We support his decision to seek treatment and look forward to his eventual return. The firm's commitment to our clients remains unchanged. They're protecting him, Cassidy whispered. Just like James's firm protected him. Reeves's laugh was bitter. Want to know what your biological father did when Howard exposed our affair? Volunteered for Doctors Without Borders. Spent 6 months vaccinating children in Africa. Came back with a tan and a dramatic story about finding his purpose. His wife took him back. His practice flourished. The whispers died down. She opened another tab, showing a decades-old newspaper clipping. James beamed from the photo, accepting an award for humanitarian service. This was taken 8 months after I told him I was pregnant with you. Look at his face. Do you see any trace of guilt? Any sign that he destroyed a family? Did you ever confront him? After he came back? Once. Reeves's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I waited outside his office. Wanted him to at least acknowledge you existed. Know what he said? Catherine, you need to move on. We both made mistakes, but I've found forgiveness. Perhaps you should try therapy. A sharp knock at the bedroom door made them both jump. Autumn stood in the doorway, her face hard. I came to get Dad's fishing gear, she said, not quite looking at Cassidy. Adler said I should take it before. She trailed off. Before what? Cassidy asked. Before he leaves for London. The firm's sending him to head the new international office. Autumn's voice turned sharp. Congratulations, sister. You managed to drive him not just out of your marriage, but out of the country. Autumn, please, save it. She pulled out her phone, holding up a screen full of text messages. Dalton's wife sent these to everyone at the club. Every message between you and her husband. Every hotel receipt. Every little lie you told Adler while you were sneaking around. She scrolled through the messages, each one a fresh wound. Look at this one, missing you already. Last night was perfect. Sent on Dad's birthday, Cassidy. While we were all at his grave. You were with him. I can explain. Explain what? How you're just like Mom. How you couldn't help betraying the best man you'll ever know. Autumn's voice cracked. Adler loved you. He would have done anything for you. And you threw it away for a man who's hiding in rehab while you take all the blame. She thrust a thick envelope at Cassidy. Here, the final papers from the estate lawyer. Dad's fishing cabin goes to me now. The trust fund reverts to the Kingston family. Even Grandma's jewelry has to be returned. Howard planned for everything, Reeves murmured from her seat. He knew this day would come. Of course he did. Autumn's laugh was cold. He saw this coming the day Cassidy was born. Blood will tell, he used to say. Guess he was right. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Cassidy? Don't bother coming to any more family events. As far as the Kingstons are concerned, you never existed. The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing through the house like a judge's gavel. After Autumn left, Cassidy's laptop chimed with a new email. From Marin, her former assistant. I shouldn't be telling you this, but you deserve to know. Dalton's rehab is a $50,000 a month resort in Arizona. Eleanor's already planning his comeback tour, talk shows, podcast appearances, a book deal about overcoming addiction and finding redemption. But that's not the worst part. We found his other phones. Plural. There was someone at his gym, another at his children's school, even one of Eleanor's friends. All married. All happening while he was with you. He had a system, Cassidy. The same restaurants, same hotels, same lines. I found receipts going back years. You weren't special. You were just next in line. I'm sorry. Mayor, a system, Cassidy repeated numbly. Like I was just another project. Of course you were. Reeves moved to her old dresser, pulling open the bottom drawer. She extracted a faded leather planner. Look familiar? Cassidy took it, her hands shaking. Inside, in James's precise handwriting, was a dating history that mirrored Dalton's playbook perfectly. First meeting. Always lunch, always public second meeting. Drinks after work. Mention marriage troubles third meeting. First kiss must let her initiate hotel selection. High-end, discreet staff, room service exit strategy. Clean break when things get complicated. He kept notes, Cassidy whispered, horrified. Like it was a business plan. James was a surgeon. He approached everything methodically. Reeves pulled out more papers. Howard found this when he hired the investigator. Want to know how many women came before me? How many came after? She spread out photographs across the bed. Different women, different years, but always the same scenario. James in expensive restaurants, hotel lobbies, charity events. Always with a married woman. Always with that same practice smile. 5 before me, Reeves continued. 3 during. 2 after. That we know of. She picked up one photo James at a medical conference, his arm around a colleague's wife. This was taken the week I told him I was pregnant with you. He said he was too busy to meet. Now we know why. Cassidy's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You don't know me, but I was with Dalton last spring. Same story. Unhappy marriage, instant connection, Lil Meridian sweet. He even used the same pet names he used with you. There's a group of us, you know? We meet at a coffee shop downtown. All his ex-lovers. All destroyed marriages. All thinking we were different, join us sometime. Misery loves company. Lauren. Another text followed immediately. P.S. Check his Instagram. Someone tagged him an hour ago. With trembling fingers, Cassidy opened the app. There was Dalton, looking tanned and serene outside the luxury rehab facility. The caption read, taking time to heal and reflect. Grateful for new beginnings. Hashtag blessed, hashtag recovery, hashtag new chapter. Eleanor had already commented. So proud of you, darling. Can't wait to have you home. He's already rewriting the story, Reeves observed, reading over her shoulder. By Christmas, he'll be giving interviews about his darkness and redemption. By next summer, he'll probably be running men's retreats about ethical leadership. She pulled out another photo from her file, James receiving a humanitarian award just 1 year after abandoning them. The game never changes, Cassidy. Only the players. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in with generations of betrayal. Cassidy stumbled to her vanity mirror, but the face that stared back was a stranger's, pale, haunted, with eyes that looked too much like James's. Had Adler seen this resemblance every time he looked at her? Had he been waiting, watching for history to repeat itself? A distinctive chime cut through the tension, an email notification from Adler's personal account. His first direct communication since that night. Cassidy's hands shook as she opened it. Cassidy, by the time you read this, I'll be on a flight to London. The house has been sold. Your things are in storage. The key is with your mother. I've instructed my lawyers to handle all further communication, that I could list everything I found. Every lie you told. Every night you weren't really working late. Every lunch meeting that wasn't with clients. But what's the point? You'll just deny, explain, justify, exactly like your mother did with Howard, that I've spent the last 3 weeks dismantling every trace of our life together. Do you know what I found in your bedside drawer? A birthday card from Dalton, dated 2 months ago. To my soulmate, he wrote. The same week you organized my birthday dinner. Looked me in the eyes and said you'd never been happier. I called Howard's old investigator. He remembered your mother's case. Said watching you follow her path was like seeing a replay of history. Same restaurants, same excuses, same desperate need to feel special. The Kingston family ring you wore? It's been passed down for 6 generations. Each woman who wore it took a vow of loyalty. Your mother broke that vow. Now you have too. I've returned it to my grandmother. Don't try to contact me again. Don't reach out to my family. Don't attempt to explain or apologize. Every word you've spoken for months has been a lie. Nothing you say now will change that you chose your path the first time you met him for lunch. Now walk it alone. Adler. Attached was a video file. Security camera footage from Lil Meridian's lobby, dated 3 weeks ago. Cassidy watched herself walk in, straight to the elevator, not even trying to be discreet. 10 minutes later, Dalton followed. The timestamp showed they stayed for 4 hours. He has everything, Cassidy whispered. Every moment, every meeting. Of course he does, Reeves said. Howard taught him well. She moved to the closet, pulling out the burgundy dress. You know what this really is? Not just a dress. It's a uniform for women like us. Women who think they're writing their own story, making their own choices. But we're just following a script written long before we were born. Her phone buzzed again, a group chat notification. Someone had added her to a conversation titled Dalton's Collateral Damage. Sarah, saw your story broke. Welcome to the club. No one wants to join. Lauren, wait till you see his redemption tour. He's already booked for Good Morning America next month. Rebecca, anyone else get the "you were special, but timing was wrong" speech? 5 others typing. They're all connected, Cassidy said numbly. All these women, all thinking they were different. Reeves spread more photos across the bed, James, with various women over the years. Look closely. See any patterns? Each photo showed a similar scene. Expensive restaurants, hotel lobbies, charity events. The women changed, but the locations remained consistent. Even the camera angles were similar, as if the private investigators all worked from the same playbook. Now look at these. She pulled up Eleanor's Instagram feed. Photos of Dalton with his other lovers, all discovered on his secret phones. Same restaurants, same hotels, same practice poses. He used Howard's old files as a template, Reeves explained. Adler found them when Howard died. Everything documented how to catch a cheating wife, how to gather evidence, how to dismantle a life piece by piece. She picked up the burgundy dress. This isn't just about you and Dalton or me and James. It's about the pattern we can't seem to break. The curse that passes from mother to daughter, generation after generation. Rage bubbled up in Cassidy's chest, hot and sudden. She snatched the burgundy dress from her mother's hands, its silk mockingly smooth against her fingers. I won't be another chapter in this story, she snarled, striding toward the fireplace where flames still danced from when Reeves lit it earlier. I won't be another cautionary tale. What do you think you're doing? Reeves asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. Breaking the cycle. Cassidy balled up the dress. Ending this legacy. You think it's that simple? Reeves moved to block her path. You think burning a piece of fabric will erase what you've done? What you are? Her phone buzzed again. Another email from Eleanor. Just found Dalton's journal. Pages of detailed notes about each conquest. About you, he wrote, easiest target yet. Married to a workaholic lawyer. Desperate for validation. Laughs at all my jokes. Thinks she's different from the others. Expected time frame. 4 to 6 months before complications require termination of arrangement. He had you figured out before you even kissed him. Just like he had all the others figured out. Just like James had me figured out 30 years ago. How does it feel to be so predictable? I thought he loved me, Cassidy whispered, her grip tightening on the silk. No, Reeves corrected sharply. You loved how he made you feel. Different. Chosen. Special. She traced the dress's neckline. I felt the same way when James looked at me. Like I was the only woman in the world. Want to know what he wrote in his journal about me? She pulled out a weathered leather notebook. Catherine, perfect target. Unhappy with dependable but boring husband. Easy to manipulate with attention. Estimated duration. 3 to 5 months. Stop, Cassidy pleaded. Why? Because it hurts to see your great love story reduced to a formula? A calculated seduction? Reeves's voice was relentless. Dalton probably used the same lines James did. Let me guess. You deserve to be appreciated. Your husband doesn't understand you. We have a special connection. Each phrase hit like a physical blow. They were exactly what Dalton had whispered to her in dark hotel rooms and quiet corners of expensive restaurants. Another notification lit up her phone. A video link from one of Dalton's other victims. Security footage from Le Meridian, but not of Cassidy. Different women, different days, but always the same scenario. Dalton arriving first, checking his watch, practicing that smile she'd thought was just for her. Watching these, the message read, is like seeing the same play with different actresses. We were all just filling a role in his little drama. Cassidy thrust the dress toward the flames. Then let's end the play. You still don't understand, Reeves said softly. The curse isn't in the dress. It's in us. In the choices we make. The lies we tell ourselves. But Cassidy wasn't listening. She dropped the burgundy silk into the fire. The flames caught quickly, turning the fabric from deep red to black. Smoke curled upward, carrying with it the musty scent of old photographs and failed marriages. There, she said, watching the dress crumble. It's done, is it? Reeves pointed to the mirror above the fireplace. Cassidy looked up and froze. In the glass, distorted by waves of heat from the fire, she saw herself wearing the burning dress. But it wasn't just her. The reflection showed other women too, shadows wearing the same dress, their faces a blur of generations of betrayal. They seemed to laugh soundlessly, mockingly, as the real dress turned to ash below. Her phone chimed one final time, a message from an unknown number. You don't know me, but I was James Whitaker's last affair before he died. Found your story online. You're his daughter, aren't you? History really does repeat itself. He used the same hotels back then that Dalton uses now. Same tricks, same lies, same endings. The worst part? 30 years later, I still catch myself missing him sometimes. Missing how special he made me feel. That's the real curse, isn't it? Even knowing we were fooled, we still crave that feeling. Your mother probably understands. Ask her if she ever really got over James. Ask her if the ache ever goes away. Welcome to the legacy, Cassidy. We're all just chapters in the same endless story. Marie? The final pieces of the dress collapsed into ember and ash. But in the mirror, the reflection still wore it, proud and defiant. A reminder that some stains can't be washed away, some legacies can't be burned. Through the window, Cassidy caught a glimpse of a familiar black car pulling away from the curb. Adler had been watching, waiting to see if this time, finally, the curse would break. The grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the house like funeral bells. In the mirror, the reflection of Cassidy in the burning dress raised a mocking toast with a phantom champagne glass the same way she had with Dalton on that first night, in that same hotel suite where so many women before her had sealed their fates. The dress may be ash, Reeves said quietly, gathering the scattered photos of James, of Howard, of all the ghosts that had led them here. But the reflection will always wear it. That's your legacy now. That's your curse. She dropped the photos into the fire, watching them curl and blacken. Your story isn't over, Cassidy. But the ending was written long before you met Dalton. Long before I met James. We're all just playing parts in a tragedy that keeps repeating, generation after generation. Above them, in the mirror's dark glass, the endless parade of women in burgundy dresses continued their silent laughter, welcoming their newest member to the legacy she could never escape.